Hello, hello. Welcome to Gen Z podcast. I'm so excited because this is going to be a new episode because we touch on dating all the time. And I feel like so many people are going through divorces right now. I just had another friend like post something. And so I wanted to do an episode because I'm divorced.
You're not a loser. This is a rebirth.
Rebirth, baby. We have to reframe it. But that's how I was telling Jen. So this is my girlfriend, Jenn Falcone. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I was telling her that I just felt like everyone treated you like, I was always joking, like when I first got divorced, I was like, I'm not contagious. Like, I'm not going to infect you with the disease of divorce. Like, hello. But that's why I joke. Like, obviously, no, you're not a loser if you're divorced. Like,
definitely not a loser.
It's a rebirth and it's a really amazing opportunity to find yourself. Like, I think it's an incredible opportunity. But yeah, I just felt like it was like I had cancer or something. Like,
no, absolutely not.
She might have a better experience than I do.
Okay, so you were how old when you got married?
I got married at 22. I always tell people, like, I can't even remember. It was like 21 or 22, but I'm pretty sure it was 22. So I got married really, really young. Yeah. A lot of pressure from my religion, which is interesting to me. Like, that's why I think it's so funny because maybe it was like a cultural, like religious, where I felt like a lot of like shame in getting divorced or people's judgment. But I feel like you guys, when you get married at 21, like what else? Like, what do you expect?
Yeah, it's
like,
young.
It's really young. Your freaking brain's not even developed.
Right.
And yeah, I think you start to realize like we're such different people. And then I felt like when we came into our own, we were like, oh, like this isn't
After
working.
Kids. So
yeah,
2 kids.
I think as you start to heal and you really because I don't feel like I came really into who I was until I was like 30. There was like a shift, right?
Totally.
Like when you're so young, you're dealing with self-esteem issues. You don't know who you are. And I think by the time I turned 30, I was like, oh, you start to heal your childhood shit. You're starting to figure out who you are. And then I think we both were on different trajectories as far as growth. And I think we both looked at each other and were like, this is not working. Like, we could stay together, but I think both of our souls would die slowly. Like, we at who we are now needs something different.
Yeah. So how old were you when you got divorced?
36.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, you were together 14
years. Yeah.
14 years.
And then plus dating. Yeah. A long time.
So I was not married.
Yes.
But I was in a long-term relationship, had a son. And I met him in my 20s, but to your point, my wants and needs were very different.
Very different in your 20s. Yes.
Like the things that I thought were important in a relationship in my 20s are definitely different today.
Right.
I just turned 40. So I think that's a really, really big, important point is as you were growing and he was growing, like maybe you weren't growing together. Maybe you were growing apart, and that's okay.
For sure. Okay. And I remember telling him like years before we divorced, I was like, I never really thought we'd get divorced, but I was like, we're growing at such different trajectories. Like, I don't know if this is going to work. Like, I kept saying that. I'm like, what do you do when that happens? But it's like a natural phase when you're growing and like getting older. You're like,
so, and are his parents still together? And your parents still together?
My parents are together. His parents aren't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did he grow up in a divorced household?
No. He's got a really interesting family dynamic. Yeah. But they, I think, ended up getting divorced when he was like early 20s.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I grew up, my parents stayed together until I was 18. My brother was 16. And I never heard them fight. I never heard them argue.
Okay.
Like
so were you blindsided?
I wasn't blindsided. Like I never saw them hold hands or show affection towards each other.
Okay.
But we had an amazing childhood. Like we did every weekend we were doing something fun and exciting and family and with other families. And we had an amazing upbringing. Like I would not change a thing. So like I said, they never fought in front of us.
Okay.
They never argued. I never saw any of that, but I also never saw overly affectionate love.
Got it.
That side of the relationship, which has probably rolled over to why I am not the most affectionate person.
Okay.
Today.
Interesting. Are you not the most affectionate?
I think like I love with my whole heart and I'm capable of loving.
Right.
And I love my kids and my husband, but I guess I'm just not the most affectionate person. Like,
Okay.
I don't want to cuddle.
Yeah. I love it.
I don't want our feet to touch.
Yeah,
I don't want
yeah.
like you do you
Yeah,
stay on your
I
side,
love
I'll
it.
stay on my side.
Right.
And it's probably rooted back. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know. So I was not married. I have a son with my ex, and we were together on and off. Oh gosh, probably, let's see, I met him in my early 20s, friends, dated, took a break, traveled, and then came back to Vegas. And then we started dating again. And then my son was born. He proposed. I said yes, but I think deep down inside, I knew that he wasn't my forever.
Right.
So then we parted ways, and my son was 3. And I remember having the conversation with my mom, just navigating, what does that look like? What does co-parenting look like?
Right.
What does, it's scary. And
Right.
although we weren't actually married, it felt like a divorce.
For
and
sure,
it felt
absolutely.
like all of the
Any
emotions.
long term, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I actually remember asking my mom and my dad separately, are you glad that you waited until we were older? Or do you wish, or, that you would have done it sooner? Because I think I saw this weight off their shoulders, me being 18, and the way that they told us, and just divorce and separation and what things look like. They were very real and raw. And I saw that in them, and also saw them individually flourish.
Okay.
So I think if there was a way to do the right divorce, they definitely did. I think, as the child, I think they did all the right things. So I kind of had that model in my head. They never said anything bad about each other.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, how did they model that divorce? What did that look like?
They'll still we'll still all get together.
That's how it should be.
Yeah.
Like, literally, that's how it should be. Yeah. And you said you get together now.
Totally. Okay. Like, all of us will still get together. The kids' holidays, and now I am married now, and he has 2 kids.
Okay.
So I have 2 step boys.
Okay.
And then my son, who they're all same age, 12 and 15. Aww. And then together we have twin girls.
Aww.
And who are 3. So it's kind of like this modern family, but in like a crazy way.
Yeah.
It's taken a long time to get here, but with work and getting everybody supportive and having it be based solely about the kids and family and togetherness. That's, I think, where my mind always went to, was like, I know my end game. I know what my end want is.
Right. Like, how do we get there?
And I would tell my son's father this all the time.
Yeah.
In the midst of like the craziness, or like the ugliness, because it gets worse before it gets better.
So I want to talk about that. So if someone's getting recently divorced, and you were saying that you have a couple friends that are, getting divorced, and I also have a couple friends, what can you anticipate in the beginning stages of divorce? Because you said it gets worse before it gets better.
I mean, look, if divorce is not easy.
No.
I think there's like this meme or something that will every now and then pop up on my Instagram, where it's like, divorce is hard, marriage is hard, single life is hard. Yeah, choose your hard.
Choose your hard.
Because they're all hard.
Yeah, it is.
And it's true. It's you have to choose your hard, because it's not like, it's not all stars and rainbows and unicorns.
No.
And you've got different personalities. No 2 relationships are the same. So so I have a few friends that are going through divorces, and like pretty nasty. And yeah, it becomes about like the things, or
the possessions and the money.
Yeah, money, and like the kids and the holidays, and it can become so petty.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, dealing with all that pettiness and the minutia of the back and forth, like, you get one shot. You get one shot.
Okay, so say that you get one shot at this.
One shot.
So explain that.
One shot, like, it sucks to have to dig down deep and put your foot down and say stuff like, these holidays are important for my family and I, or
Yeah.
this is the schedule, or if I'm able to provide more of the academic support for the child or children, like I prefer that they're with me more so during the week, or
Yeah.
what does that look like? And
Yeah.
even from a financial standpoint, like that wasn't so much of a big thing for my ex and I, because we were not married.
Okay.
But yeah, like my friends that are going through it, it's ugly, and who controls the money, and who
It's ugly because I feel like the bruised egos on both parties start to overpower the emotional maturity. Like I feel like it's a hurt, no matter if it's right or not.
Mhm.
It's like a hurt, and it's like I want the upper hand, and it's like this really ugliness that can occur.
I hate, one of my biggest pet peeves is when parents are like, they're my kids.
You're like,
okay. And like when your resentment box is full, and when you're heated, and when you're angry or whatever, like they're my children. Hold on. They're not yours. They're ours.
Yeah.
They're ours.
Right.
And it's not my schedule or my this. Like it becomes this battle that you're just, resentment boxes are full, and there's anger, and
that's what I think. I love that you said that resentment box. You're like, yeah, once that resentment box is full, then it's like explosion.
Yeah. As a point of reference, when you're in the thick of it and you're negotiating, and there's attorneys and there's family and friends in your ears, and it can become very, very, very overwhelming.
Right.
And so then that resentment box it's probably already pretty full, because you're actually going through the divorce, and then you're having to nitpick and go back and forth. And then it's just it's full, it's overflowing, right? It's this pot that's boiling and spilling over.
Right.
And, but then once that is settled, and it's like, okay, here's the outline.
Yep.
Here's the parenting agreement.
Right.
Here's what we're doing.
Yep.
Here's how we're going to navigate it.
Right.
And it's divided.
Yeah.
Right. Because then it's, you know, your schedule.
Yes.
You have your days.
Right.
He has his days. You somewhat know how to plan with schedules, with holidays and stuff. Then I think that's where, okay, the dust kind of settles, and then you're able to go forward.
Right.
And one foot in front of the other, without this lingering, without this heaviness, when you're in the thick of it, in the middle of the divorce.
So how do you tell your friends like how to even survive the thick of it? Or like, do you feel like there's opportunities of healing in the thick of it? Or do you feel like healing comes after the thick of it? Because you're almost in flight or fight.
Yeah, totally. I have a friend in New York who's like, I mean, it could probably be a Netflix story. Like it's so crazy. Our control, like, and I think for her as an example, she worried a lot about like what was happening when her girls were not with her.
I think I relate to that so much.
Totally.
Nobody talks about the lack of control that you have, that you don't, the lack of control that you don't have when your kids are gone.
Yeah.
And that was really, I didn't anticipate how hard that would be.
Yeah.
And worrying about that. Like, is this person going to make good decisions on behalf of my kids or like whatever?
It's the unknown.
It is the unknown.
We know the equation of anxiety. The unknown equals anxiety.
Right.
And
exactly.
especially as protective mama bear,
right?
Like you have been with your children since they were born.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it's really, really hard. But I remember telling her, once you swallow that pill of like, okay, they're going with their father. They're going for a couple days. I know when it ends. I know it's going to be 2 days, or, like a 3-2-2 or whatever that schedule is. I'm going to utilize those 2 days to like really, really mentally and physically focus on myself.
I love that.
And like be selfish. That's your time to be selfish. That is your time to do whatever you want to do.
Right.
And don't feel guilty for one moment.
I love that. I have found that it's been really hard because I'm living 2 different lives. So when my kids go to their dads, I'm this single, fun party girl. And then I'm literally back and like a mom the next week. It's a crazy mind fuck. I'm like, wait, who am I? Like, and it's really hard, but it's like, yeah. And you shouldn't feel guilty about that. And that's why I like to reframe it. Like, divorce is a gift in itself. there are hard sacrifices that you make, that you don't get as much time with your kids, but it's a death and a rebirth, and it's an opportunity to pour into yourself and to find out who you are. And honestly, when you're so broken is probably the best time to find yourself, because you have to learn to self-soothe, and you don't rely on your partner to help you do that. Like, you're on your own.
Yeah.
And like, what happens when you're like the lowest of low, and like, how can you heal yourself and self-soothe, and like, and then who are you? Like, what does this look like? What does this new chapter look like for you? So it is a gift, like with those weeks, but it is crazy how like, I'm like, oh, I'm like this single girl for a week, and then I'm like a mom the next week. And
yeah. And I think it's a lot in your mindset,
right. Yeah.
Like, okay, what do I want to tackle this week while the kids are not here?
Right.
So that way I can get everything that I can
be present.
done.
Right.
So when they are here,
For sure.
like, I would rather have 100% of 50% of the time than be 50% present with 100% of the time.
Yep.
Right. So like, think
Yep.
about that. Like, I have told my friend, okay, like, you know that these next 2 days,
Yep.
you know that they're going to be with him.
Yep.
It's going to be hard. Your schedule is going to be, out of sorts, but utilize those 2 days to get everything that you need to done. Or like, maybe you just want to sit in your bed and watch a movie.
And you don't feel bad about it.
And that's fine.
That's so fine.
And obviously having a great support team around you, friends and family, is super important.
Yes. You have to have a support system. What happens when you don't have a support system? Like, if your family, or like, do you have any friends that are dealing with that? Or do they feel it? They mostly have.
I feel like they feel supported. I mean, logistically, like the girl in New York, her family's in another state.
Yeah.
But, she does have friends.
Okay, good.
Or like, maybe it's a work project, or maybe it's something that you want to do that it's kind of been on the back burner.
Right.
That at least creatively you can do something that gets your mind going.
I think what you said, creative. I don't know if it's because I'm a hairstylist or I'm more of creative, but that's how I started the podcast. Like, a podcast would have never been built if I hadn't gotten divorced, because I needed a creative outlet. I needed something to pour all this weird energy into. Like, I had to transmute it. And so I do think, like, whatever that looks like for you, finding something creatively as an outlet, whether it's like dancing, writing poetry, like making music, but like something to transmute all the energies that are going through you during divorce. So you have to put the energy somewhere.
Yeah. And it's okay to admit, like, those days of like, I'm fucking struggling today. Like, this was a hard day.
And I think it's so important to do that, because I had a therapist tell me, and I talked about it on a podcast, that I had toxic positivity.
What is that?
Exactly. So I think that I believe in like the law of attraction, and I was going through so much grief and anger and sadness that I was so afraid to attract more of that into my life, that I was like kind of almost not acknowledging those hard days and those hard feelings. And I would just like wake up and like, okay, I'm struggling, but like, I have so much to be grateful for. So I would write all these gratitudes. And she's like, you have toxic positivity. Like, there are some times when you have to acknowledge, like, I'm struggling today. Today sucks. I feel like shit. And like, just acknowledge that and like, let it be. And maybe you sit in that and not have to try to constantly like fix it or like try to feel better. Like, you kind of have to sit in it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great to like look at the positive,
of course.
Right.
Yeah.
And always kind of that positive person or that go-to person that you can call, and that there's no judgment, and they're going to listen or take you out and do whatever, but like clear your mind. But yeah, it's okay. There are going to be bad days.
There's going to be a lot.
There are going to be days that are very, very challenging.
Yep.
And even navigating like how old the kids are, right? Like, are they young? Are they older? What do they see? What do they hear? What do they observe? And kids are smart. Kids pick up on that energy.
Yes. Yeah.
So, which I think is, again, going back to like those days that you are off, or, you don't have kids, and to utilize that for self, because self-care is super important.
So what did you do as far as like creative outlets or self-care to help you heal from your relationship?
I think I like dove deep in work.
Yeah.
But it kept me busy, and it like, it kept me busy. I teach yoga too on the side. So I kind of pick back up more so on that. traveled with friends.
Yeah.
I had some great girlfriends that were like, okay, we're getting out of town for a couple days. Like,
Amazing.
let's clear your mind. Let's just talk and hike and whatever. But yeah, and I think like anything, time heals.
Yes.
Time heals. Like we were talking earlier about, divorce and the chaos, and then navigating all of those legal and custody arrangements and stuff. And sometimes the pendulum swings so far in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And maybe even like the person that you knew that you married or that you
100%
were with,
different.
like it goes from here and it goes way over here. And you're like, hold on, you're doing all the things that you told me you were never going to do. And now you're doing all of those things.
Yeah. And I'm like, huh?
Totally.
Yeah, that's really hard to watch too. And you're just like, it's an acknowledgement, like just because you spent so much time with that person, like they're different.
Yeah. And that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
We're all growing.
Right.
We're all changing.
Exactly.
I feel like younger, they kind of don't really remember.
Yeah. Someone gave me really good advice about telling, because that's, I think, the hardest, most brutal.
How did you tell the kids?
So somebody gave me really good advice, and I'm so glad I listened to this. So they said to take the older one and talk to them privately first. And I'm really glad I did. Told her a couple days before, I let her process it. And then we told together. And that's probably one of the things that have hurt my heart the most. Cause like, I never want to hurt my children. I never want to break up a family. And I think the only thing that they seem to complain about is just switching houses. It's hard on them.
So what's your schedule?
1 week on, 1 week off.
Yeah, that's what we do now.
And I love it. They actually prefer 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off.
Really?
Which I'm kind of going to Austin. And if I do end up moving more and doing hair out there, that's kind of the schedule we would keep. They like it because they feel established and settled. They don't like the constant, like getting settled and then moving.
Oh my God, the backpacks and the stuff. And it's like, one drawer, one household has all the socks.
That's the thing. Like we have literally our wardrobe. I bought their own wardrobe. He bought their own. And no matter what, I cannot find their outfits. And I'm like, what the hell?
I feel like we can laugh about it today.
Yeah. It's like, whatever. Like
it sounds so stupid, but like, yes, you get it.
You're like, can you give me all your underwear? My gosh. Like, hello. How did it get to your house?
Okay, so they like the schedule with the longer stretches.
They like longer stretches.
So do our boys.
Yeah. I just think I think as they get older, they want more of like a routine. Yeah. Settled.
Yeah. And I think that's so, as a point of reference for the girl and my friend in New York, like her kids are young, they're 2 and 4. Like she has no concept to think a 1 week on, 1 week off schedule. Right. She's like, I have major anxiety about that. I have anxiety of just 2 days. So that 2-2-3 schedule that I think is really popular.
I think that works when they're younger, right?
Yeah.
Way younger. I don't think the older kids like it.
Yes. But because it is the stuff back and forth and they're a little confused.
Yes,
right?
For sure.
What day is it? Am I with mom? Am I with dad? And then leading into that 1 week on. And we do that. And
it's easy.
So how do you guys navigate holidays?
So far, we've done them together. The first 2 years, we were really, really amicable. This year has been kind of a shit show where just some things happen. So I almost felt like I got divorced this year. It's been more challenging, but we've really, really tried to put our egos aside and do it for the kids. I mean, we'll see how it all shapes out. Like my ideal, is what you guys do. Like my ideal situation is like, I have my partner, he has his, we're all cool and respect each other. And that we're mature enough that we can all go to a holiday dinner together. Like we can be in the same room together. Like that's weird to not.
And I remember yes. And that's the ideal, right? Like let's all just come from a place of love.
Right.
We don't have to be together. It's fine. Yes. You're in my life. I think we forget sometimes, this person was in my life for a certain amount of time.
Right.
There clearly is good.
Of course.
There clearly is good.
What? Yeah. You wouldn't be with this person. Yeah.
Right. You wouldn't have invested that much time and energy regardless of the time. So let's honor that. Let's come from a place of love.
Yes.
Even though the person may drive you fucking crazy and you're like, what are you doing? Where are you thinking? Yes. Like, thank God you were not my problem anymore.
Yes, exactly.
But still coming from a place of love.
Right.
And I feel like today, so it's been 9 years plus. And I actually think COVID brought us all together.
Interesting. How so? Just you guys were kind of forced?
I feel like there were definitely a couple years of navigating like the sporting events, for example, like everybody showing up, X showing up. Sometimes you look at each other, sometimes you talk to each other, sometimes, that awkward.
Right.
It's navigating. So it's like the pendulum swings so far in the opposite direction.
Right.
And then it slowly comes back. And then there'll be a couple hiccups along the way.
Yes.
And then it's like, okay.
It's not very smooth. And I think that's what you have to expect. Like, I love that. If you have expectations of it going smooth, you're going to be so disappointed.
And also boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like, I remember telling my son's father, I want to have holidays together.
Right.
I want us all to celebrate together.
Yes.
Who knows? Maybe we'll even go on a family trip one day.
Yeah.
Like, I kept like reminding him of that.
Yeah.
And to this day, he's like, you called it. Like, you
yeah.
Like you
You're like,
always
because
said,
this is what we're going to do.
You always said that that's what you wanted to work for, or that's what you always wanted to work towards.
Right.
And it's true.
Yes.
I genuinely came from that place. But like, if there was a nasty phone call or if there was something where we were at each other, then it was like, nope, not letting that bad energy go. Like, that wall's up.
Yep. But you're right. The pendulum completely swings.
Yeah.
But then it starts to get a little bit better after. Yeah.
So I think so just as a point of reference, I am the only one that has, that is from divorce. So my ex's parents were still together. Okay. My husband's parents were still together, and his ex's parents were still together. Okay. So
there was no point of reference, really.
Fast forward. Yeah. Right. And like I said, I never like experienced anything toxic with my parents divorcing.
Right.
So for me, I only had this, I'm going to say beautiful reference you know, you could put it in the same as beautiful divorce, so to speak.
Yeah.
But like, that was my point of reference. And that's the place that I came from is I know that we can all be together. Like, I saw my parents do it.
Exactly.
We don't have to speak negatively about each other.
Right.
I saw my parents speak very highly of each other and still share friends. And so I think over time, I kind of took the lead in that regard with being the glue to like bring everybody together. Mm-hmm. And we're in a great place today. Like,
that's amazing.
I have a great relationship with my husband's ex and even her parents. And just,
was it easy at first?
No, I think that it wasn't easy at first.
Yeah.
But I also recognize that like their divorce was their divorce. Mm-hmm. It wasn't me.
Right.
It wasn't like their shit, their resentment boxes were so full on each other. Mm-hmm. And like, we've all debriefed after, years down the road. Yeah. So I let them do their thing. Mm-hmm. I never came from a place of me trying to be my stepboy's mother.
Right.
That was always their mother.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it can be this like territorial kind of the my and our, right? Mm-hmm. My kids, my kids, my kids. Hold on a second. And so she knew that I was never.
Yeah.
I respected her as a mom.
Of course. Yeah.
I always respected her as a mom.
Right.
And my husband always respected my son's father as Max's father.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a overstepping. It was like, okay, like you guys figure out your shit.
Yeah.
If it got really bad, then like I would intervene and be like real and raw.
Yeah.
Like, no, you that nasty to her, that email to her was really nasty. Like, you need to apologize.
Yeah.
And my husband would be like, oh, the excuse is, no, what's right is right. That wasn't appropriate for you to send that email to her.
Right.
So fix it.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
Like, if there was something with a scheduling issue, I feel like her and I are like, let's go to coffee and like, let's talk about summer schedule and let's navigate what that looks like. So it did take time.
Okay.
But it's definitely possible.
Talk about friends, because we mentioned that.
Yeah.
That's a tough one with divorce.
Yeah. So like,
if you have mutual friends.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of mutual friends?
Yes. And
Like people that you kind of grew up with or through the church?
I feel like I lost a lot of friends getting divorced. And it was really weird to me because we were both so amicable and friends. I just think it makes people really uncomfortable.
Totally.
And
like people feel like they have to choose one or the
and
other.
nobody had to choose anything.
Yeah.
And I think too, like I said, I almost felt like people thought I was like contagious. That's kind of how they treated me a little bit. Like it was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. And so then they just kind of left, which is, yeah, I mean, that was hard. No matter what, I feel like you will lose people. And that's one thing. But even not even divorce, like growth, you lose people.
Yeah.
So, but it was painful. Like I didn't anticipate it, especially because it was so amicable. I didn't anticipate, but I think sometimes you trigger people. Perhaps they're having their own marital problems. And I was always like, I don't want people to get divorced. It's not fun. It's so hard. It's so terrible. Like I support you in your relationship. Like I don't want that for you. But I find like sometimes it's difficult, like married friends, I think maybe their spouses don't want them hanging out with a single girl. And I understand that. So it's just hard. It's just a weird position to be put in. But I think for the most part, I kept most of my friends. We lost. Some that hurt, stung. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same. I think that I remember there was one of my dear friends who I actually met through my son's father. Like they have go way back, and I met her through him, and we became very close. And that particular couple, they were very upfront, like, I love you and I love you, and I'm going to be friends with both of you, and I am not going to get in the middle.
Love
and like
that.
I don't want to hear about the shit. I don't want to go back and forth.
No,
I don't want
we're not
this
picking
to be
sides.
like,
There's no,
I love both of you.
Right.
And I think that really stuck as well.
That's an emotionally mature person. That's how you handle it. And so I think not having that expectation of everyone, because a lot of people are not emotionally mature and they can't handle situations like that. But that's perfect.
And I think there are also those moments, again, when that resentment box is so full and you're in the thick of it and you're in, like, it's so fresh and it's so, and for you, maybe it was a little delayed.
Mine was very delayed. Yeah. Very delayed. I'm like, oh, sick.
I was in a dream.
That was just like, that was like a little like, put your toes in the water and see it. Now it's like, oh, let's dive, cold plunge.
Here you go.
For 3 full minutes. Yeah, freezing. Yeah. Mine was very delayed.
Yeah, I think that the friend thing can be tough. We had separate friends, like just through work and personal, and
I think that's really important to have your separate friends.
So we were I wasn't necessarily in your kind of situation, but yeah, definitely there were mutual friends.
Yeah.
Couple friends that we would go out with, that there were some that I lost. And that's okay.
It's okay. It's painful though. And I think that needs to be acknowledged.
But I also picked up so many amazing friends. And
it's like that let them theory that I've been really trying to practice. Have you heard about that theory?
No.
Just let them. Let them do whatever they want. Like people in general. Like we're so focused on like clinging to things and people, and we want them to act a certain way. And I've really just had like let go or be dragged. Like let them. If they can't be your friend in this season, let them go. And that's okay.
Well, and also like, are you overcompensating by stressing out and worrying about it?
Right.
To where it's taking away your time and energy when you really ultimately can't control them.
No.
So if they serve their purpose, their time,
their chapter in your life,
that's okay.
But I do think it's important to have separate friends.
Yeah.
Separate, so that so you're not in a situation where, holy shit, like we have the same mutual friend group. Like you're always going to have those, but I think having your own separate, because I mean, I would have never survived divorce without my girlfriends. And I'm sure you feel the same. Like having a band of women, I was like, I was experiencing the most beautiful platonic love I've ever experienced. Just women are just incredible. Like I've had the best relationships with women.
Did you have the supportive friends that you talk about? Were they still married or single, or had they experienced divorce?
trying to think, I feel like it ebbs and flows. You start to find people like some of my close friends right now in this season, we've been friends for a long time, but like kind of, we weren't really hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
And then they find themselves divorced. And so we're all hanging out. And I just, my work, like my coworkers have been so beautiful because that was like my sanctuary. And so I just was like, this is like the only place right now that I feel like happy and joy. And so they were really stepped in and helped. I don't know if you felt like this did you get a lot of feedback from people? That's what was so frustrating to me. I don't know why. You probably didn't. I don't know.
Feedback how?
People just had
like they're getting divorced. Like,
yeah, people literally would project their own shit on me, like say the craziest stuff, tell me like what they would do in my situation, like all the time. And I was like, so whenever someone gets divorced, I'm like, do not listen to, like, turn off the noise, because people come at you with very weird things. Did you get that?
I did like opinions.
Yeah.
And I think maybe a part of me kind of worried, like, how are people going to view me, or like, how is I going to be perceived?
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, like, if you genuinely can say, I tried to make this relationship work.
Mm-hmm.
I really tried. We went to therapy and we're talking and we've worked, and it just isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then, going through that divorce process and separation process, whatever that may be. Yeah, to have those friends that are there for you regardless.
No matter what.
Yeah,
I just had a couple people that would just be like, I really wish you guys would get back together, and just very interesting things. And I was like, that's so interesting. I would never say that about your relationship, like ever,
Yeah. They don't know.
They don't.
They're not in the relationship.
And I think it's so tacky when people talk shit about their spouse. Yeah. I think it's really tacky. And I think a lot of so I never did. And so it did come as a shock that I got divorced, but it's because I talked about it because I didn't think it was appropriate.
So do you feel like you didn't talk about it because you didn't want people to perceive you going through a divorce? Or
no, it was just prior. Like I would never say anything bad or tell people about any struggles. Like it was just something we dealt with privately. And so it definitely blindsided people. Mm-hmm. And they were like, I'm so shocked. And I'm like, well, isn't that a good thing? Right. Mm-hmm. Like that I didn't air out all my weird shit to the world, or you know what I mean? Like I handled that in private. So we definitely gave people a lot of gossip to talk about for a long time. Like I was like, you're welcome. Like, you know what I mean? For no reason, but like, it was just shocking.
And when you're in it, when it's you and you're overanalyzing and you're in the thick of it, and it's hard, and it's an emotional roller coaster, and then you're sitting here trying to make sure that your kids are okay. And
I know it is so, that's the thing too. It's like, if I could give anybody advice for being a friend or family member of someone going through divorce, they are so tapped out on like, especially if you have kids. Like I am literally trying to grieve a relationship. I am trying to make sure that my kids are okay. I'm trying to help them grieve that.
I want them to see me as okay.
Right. I don't have time to manage your emotions. Yeah. So please step back and just love me. Yeah. Like that is my only advice. Like stop. Like unless I'm saying, what would you do? All usually people want is to feel loved, seen, heard, and supported. And we're not asking for advice typically. I have too much, like that's how I felt. I was like, I'm just trying to navigate like grieving, having to co-parent, making sure my kids are okay with our new reality. Like I don't have time to like talk to you about this, or like have like manage your emotions. Like I'm really sorry that that's hard for you as a friend or whatever. Like, but I don't have the capacity or the bandwidth. And so I think suggesting like, as a friend or a family member of someone who's getting divorced, is to just step back, don't project your shit on them, and just love them where they're at.
Yeah. And even just the simple messages of like, hey, I'm thinking about you.
That's it. Yeah.
You respond when you can. Like, I hope you're doing okay. I know you don't have the kids for a couple days or whatever. Those simple check-ins, I think mean a lot.
And just, it's the thought. Yeah. Talk to me about co-parenting.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on that? It's hard.
So would you date a guy who had kids?
So I haven't. We were talking about this. Yeah. I haven't. I don't know how I feel about it. I see a lot of beautiful relationships that work. I see a lot of things that don't work. Yeah. My girlfriends date guys with kids, and it's seems like a lot of work and challenging and something I'm not really interested in. For right now, I have just said, I'm open if the universe was like, this is your person. But I would say my ideal situation is no kids. I would rather get pregnant and have my own baby. Even if I'll be freaking old, I'll rock the shit out of that belly. I will literally be in so much trouble at work because I will literally be in a crop top with just my big old boobs and my belly out at like 41, like, whatever. But I would rather give them their own children and not try to do that. But again, if it was my person, I know it can work. I know it also cannot work.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's a case by case basis, but it's not my ideal situation.
So I think if you would have asked me 10 years ago, like, okay, what's my next chapter?
Right.
And one, I would have never thought that I was going to meet somebody and end up being my husband in Vegas.
Yeah.
I would have thought like, oh, when I don't have my son, I'm going to be jet setting somewhere. I'm going to be
That's what I'm doing. Yeah, people
fun,
catching flights, not feelings.
And I'm going to meet someone. And so I think you may have an idea.
Yes. But
be open.
Be open because the universe always has a funny way of.
I will tell you, I understand wanting to start a new relationship. And if he doesn't have kids or if he wanted and you being able to provide that and having that special bond, I see that. I also see a man having children understands more about maybe your dynamic and your co-parenting. And maybe there's a day where like it's just chaos and you're over it and you maybe had plans and now you have to cancel and you're having an emotionally heavy day. Mm-hmm. I think someone who has kids and can understand and relate to that emotionally heavy day can be more supportive to you. Where, my
kids are so stressful. Yeah.
Co-parenting is no joke.
Right.
I mean, being a step parent is no joke.
So that's what I'm also talking about too. Like, I don't know if I want to do that, take on that role. Cause it's hard.
And then at what age?
Exactly.
Right. Like young, when I came into my stepboys' lives, they were 3 and 5.
Okay.
So they were young.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been together. I've been in our life more than half of what, prior to me. So, the blending of families is very interesting. Yeah. You've got kids with different personalities. Mm-hmm. You have kids that may be closer to one parent than the other. It's hard because you want to show them stability, right, in a new relationship. I would encourage you to wait to introduce your kids.
Absolutely.
There's no point in like the immediate introduction.
No, not at all.
I think it's confusing for them.
It is.
Regardless of their age.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, you look at it like, okay, are the kids young or are they teens?
Right.
And is it like,
what do you think's easier?
Probably younger. I don't know.
I will say my kids have asked me very specifically to please not date someone with kids.
Really?
Yes. So,
what's the reasoning?
They just think it's really weird that they'd have to like live with some kids, you know? And so I understand that. And I think because my kids are older, that's kind of why I want to date someone without kids.
Yeah.
Because I do think it's harder because they are older. And so I think I would much rather like that would be my ideal situation. But again, like we said, open to what is I want that what's for my highest good. So, but I do think because my kids are older, that's kind of where I'm at, because I do think it's easier when they're younger. Younger kids just have this like, yay, like more, like the more the merrier. When older are like, who are you?
And I will say, I mean, the 3 boys, they are thick as thieves. Like,
I love
and
that.
It was kind of,
that's
really
so cute.
Special.
Yeah.
It's really, really special.
I can tell by the pictures that you post, like, they're all the same age.
Like you mess with one, you mess with them all.
Love.
You just, it's really, really special. And I think people have observed for years and recognize like, wow,
it's like a special bond.
That bond between the boys is really strong.
Right.
And even now with my girls, with the twins,
they're so cute.
I mean, they have 3 brothers.
How fun.
Yeah. I'll never forget when we first told them, we like sat them on the couch and one of them was like, Christmas, they're going to cry on a Christmas vacation. It's going to be ruined.
That's hilarious. They're like, babies? Oh, yeah.
But like now, I mean, they're like, they could do no wrong.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I love
So
that.
blending step parenting is very tough. I think my husband and I always like, we put a lot of time and energy into therapy right at the beginning.
Like both you guys couples therapy? Yeah. It's
because
huge.
we met and we were like, he was at a low and I was in the middle of my shit. And it was just, this wasn't like, okay, we're in the dating world and let's put our best foot forward.
Right.
And I think for me, it was really important to like right out of the gate, figure out and understand, let's learn from the past mistakes
so that we can make this work.
So that way we're not making the same mistakes again.
Right.
So we both recognized that was really, really important in our relationship. Like there were wounds and there was change and to our point about like wants and needs in your 20s versus your 30s are very different.
Totally.
I mean, it's very, very different. So I think putting that and being respectful to all parties, not just us starting our family unit and the blending of the kids, but also respectful of our exes. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if people kind of look at it from that perspective.
But I think therapy is a perfect way to like navigate that.
Yeah. It was really like, okay, how do we not make the same mistakes? Mm-hmm. How do we properly communicate?
Right.
How do we not go down a path of like avoidance or, not recognizing something's off. Let's deal with it. Let's fix it for the sake of the kids. But I think my husband and I have done a really good job at, if I need to discipline my son, that's on me.
Right. Yes.
He's going to support me.
Of course.
But I'm going to discipline.
Right.
And I'm not disciplining his kids.
Yeah.
Like school-wise or academics or
that's on him.
Some funk happened,
right.
whatever.
Right.
And there needs to be a talk. Mm-hmm. That's on him and the boys.
Right.
And if I need to discipline my son, then I'm going to discipline. Mm-hmm. But the moment that he talks back or there's something else there, it's a matter of my husband is supporting me. He's not stepping in as father because he has a dad, but he is stepping in as the father figure of this house.
Okay.
And our house, we treat each other with respect.
Love that.
And so discipline, like we kind of navigated it that way, and even responsibilities.
Yeah.
Like you're taking your kids to school. Yeah. You're picking them up.
Yeah.
I'll take mine.
Yeah.
I'll pick mine up.
Right. And that's okay.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you get in a bind, absolutely I'll help you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's like those kind of,
I knew from the beginning, like there's a lot of moving parts here. Mm-hmm. Like we're now 4 school drop-offs and pickups. Gosh,
that's crazy.
Like, this is not going to be all on me.
Yeah, no.
So
absolutely not.
You handle yours. I'll handle mine.
Yeah.
If you get in a bind, absolutely we got each other's backs.
Yes.
I got you. You got me. We got it. But we do a really good job at dividing the responsibilities in that way.
Yeah.
You have to. It shouldn't fall on one person.
Because I've been dating guys without kids, I think it is intimidating to step into this stepdad role. Mm-hmm. And the way that my kids are just so sweet. Like they literally are like, because like my kids have a good dad, and it's not like, it's not like I need someone to step in and like be this dad, but like my friends are like, or my kids are like, it's like a bonus friend. Like the more that like we, we'll love them as a bonus friend. Like,
it's an extension of you.
It's an extension. Yeah, exactly. And so, they're like actually pretty excited. They're like, oh, that'd be so fun. Like, but I think it's very intimidating a little bit to step into that role. And it's like, and I think they don't know, like, I've had some guys like, well, I'm not wired that way. Like, and I'm like, okay, okay.
And sometimes, so if you were to date somebody who didn't have kids, it would be a responsibility of you to kind of navigate what those boundaries are.
For sure.
Is it he's stepping in as coach on the baseball team? Probably not.
Yeah.
Right? Like that may be something that oversteps.
Yeah.
Unless it was something that was talked about. Or,
right.
Is he practicing and, throwing the ball around in the backyard?
Fun.
Well, sure.
Yeah,
that's
of course.
great.
Yeah.
Let's support That's support. That's coming from a place of love.
Right.
So
it is interesting to navigate.
I think it falls on you. How are you navigating what those steps are?
Yep.
And still being respectful for your ex,
your ex. Of course. And being respectful for your current partner to make sure that, you know, and I think that would require some therapy probably. Totally. Absolutely. And just like, okay, this is what we want to do and how, because I obviously want it to be the most healthy situation. Yeah. If you could give someone going through a divorce one piece of advice.
Oh gosh. Respect. Still respect your ex. Mm-hmm. There was good there. That's important to remember. There was some good at some time. Mm-hmm. And I think if they feel respected, if they feel that you still respect them, it will make life easier.
Yeah, they will treat you better.
When you come from a place of love and when you come from a place of respect, anything's possible. Okay. Like you can absolutely navigate whatever the future holds.
Right.
Is it holidays together? Is it traveling together? Is it Sunday dinner? Like whatever it is, if you come from a place of love and respect, you can get to whatever place you want.
I think too, to go on that, I like how you were like, my ideal situation is this. And to realize like to get to this, there's going to be a lot of muck. Mm-hmm. And to kind of keep that perspective, like we can still do this very healthily. Maybe it's not right now.
Yeah.
But that's like the end game. That's the end goal. This is what I want. This is where we're going to get there, but to also be patient and not be like, we're never going to have this ideal. Like it's going to take time.
And maybe tell them that.
Yeah.
Tell them that. Like even in like the ugliest moments, like I want to be able to.
Right.
Celebrate a birthday or go on a trip or whatever that end goal is, like remind him that that's your default. And when shit hits the fan or like it's ugly in that heated moment or whatever, and things are said and done. And like, maybe it just takes everybody having a breath, gather your thoughts, but then also remind like, hey, my end goal is this.
Yeah.
That's my end goal.
And we're going to get there.
Yeah.
And it's just going to take time.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Jenn, for coming on. She's also a 2N Jen, right? You are a 2N Jen. I don't trust a 1N Jen. I literally don't. I'm like,
I know a couple.
Oh, you do? Yeah. Okay. I do too, actually. She's my girlfriend. But I'm always like, I don't trust a 1N Jen. 2Ns forever. Thank you so much for coming on. You're the best. I appreciate it.